back, listeners, to Cosmic Confluence podcast.
Where we dive deep into the intersection of entrepreneurship, mental health, and spiritual growth. I'm your host, Sana, and today's conversation is one you won't want to miss. Our guest, Scottie Schneider, has lived a life of remarkable transformation from being homeschooled on a conservative Christian farm to graduating from West Point, serving as an army officer, and later becoming a successful entrepreneur. But after a near death experience, his journey took a radical turn toward healing, music, and plant medicine. And now Scotty dedicates his entire life to helping others heal, particularly military veterans and those seeking alternative therapies. And his work is deeply rooted in Indigenous traditions. And he even offers a free medicine music course that's reaching thousands each month. And today we'll be exploring the powerful connection between entrepreneurship, mental health, and all these unconventional paths that actually lead to healing. So let's quickly get into this. So, Scotty, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute pleasure having you with us.
Likewise. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay, so uh, you know, before we start talking about the topic, I think our listeners would love to know a bit about your story. It's so varied and such a transformation from military discipline and then to entrepreneurship and now to a completely different world of music and plant medicine and healing. So, can you take us through this journey and what led you to fully embrace this path?
Yeah, I really appreciate the question. As you mentioned a little bit in the overview, I started off life
Mhm.
to homeschooled on a farm to very conservative Christian parents. And then I went and joined the Army. So I was 7 years in the Army and nearly died when I froze off a toe and a half in Alaska. Very nearly made it out of there, almost lost half my foot. And so that
Oh.
meant my career in the Army was at an end. And so I became an entrepreneur. So I started building
Mhm.
companies, and my first two companies were really successful. The first one, for example, I started off at zero. I coded it in my basement, and before long, I was doing $50,000 a month in profit. And I thought that was going to make me happy.
Mhm.
But what ended up was I was very stressed. I was a functional alcoholic. I was just not happy, and I eventually made my way down here to Colombia, where I fell in love with plant medicine and indigenous healing. I started meditating.
Mhm.
I started really looking for what I wanted to do in the world. And it was that really gave me the experience and inspiration to start what I'm doing now. So I'm still an entrepreneur, but I'm building companies a little bit differently. So instead of charging people for it, I just build companies for free. And I believe in the reciprocity of the universe that good things will come because of that.
I love that word, reciprocity of the universe. That's really a
Oh, thank
beautiful
you.
phrase. Yeah. Great, great. Thank you for sharing this with me. And one question that I think our listeners would also like to they'd be having. Do you find any parallels or similarities between your military training and the work you do now with plant
Mm.
medicine and healing? I mean, are there any surprising lessons that you carried over?
Yeah, my military training taught me a lot of discipline. It taught me a lot of
Mhm.
self-reliance. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
I think all the healing methodologies you can use, which there are many, you can go to AA, you can meditate, you can take plant medicines, you can work out. All those things revolve around you actually doing something for yourself. It revolves around self-discipline and the idea that there's no magic pill out there that
Mhm.
exists anywhere. You're not going to take ayahuasca and all your problems are solved. It's a opening of a door to what can I do personally in my life to better myself.
Mhm.
And so my training in the military really taught me how to take initiative and ownership of my own problems and to figure it out for myself. And so I think that's a really powerful lesson that I learned early on in the military.
That's quite bold and very pragmatic because uh, I I think discipline we of course we can definitely relate, but one thing which you mentioned is self-reliance. You know, taking ownership of your problems or the circumstances and working on them. I think that definitely speaks of a strong uh, mindset, resilient mindset. And I think that's what is also equally applicable in entrepreneurship or, discovering uh, alternative and effective ways of healing as well. So that's really a good point, I believe. Um,
Well, thank you.
Scotty, also, talking about your journey of entrepreneurship, and we'll also talk about mental health. So you have built and then you exited two successful SaaS companies, which it's no small feat. Many entrepreneurs they struggle with mental health. We see companies, in fact, in the first 5 years of their operation, companies getting closed, entrepreneurs having tremendous mental health um, issues, especially burnout and identity crisis. So, what was your experience navigating this space?
Yeah. Well, my first startup, as I mentioned, within that 6 months, we had gotten to $50,000 a month in recurring revenue, and most of that was profit.
Mhm.
But it really took a tremendous toll on me personally. I was stressed out. I had developed challenges and problems and pain in my wrists and forearms from typing too much. I Everything was just going wrong, like on every level. I was burnt out, stressed, depressed. But I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we need to understand when it's time to leave. Meaning, I allowed the company to be acquired. I could have continued running it, but it was time to leave. It was taking too much from me at the time. And then I started another one, and the same thing happened, right? So I got stressed out, and burnt out.
Mhm.
And so then I asked myself, like, is there a pattern here? Like, well, there clearly is. Both companies I've started, I've been successful at, but it's taking a toll on me personally. So I began to ask myself, is this really what I want? I think in life, we're always a lot of forces are trying to tell us what we want or what we need. So if you're in the corporate world, well, get a nice house, get a nice car, get a nice partner, and you'll be happy. In the entrepreneurship world, we're told, well, if you get a company to 10,000 or 50,000 or whatever your goal is, you'll be happy.
Mhm.
But what I found was it's not the amount of money that makes one happy. It's how you live your life. And so that's why now when I build companies, I build them much slower, not because necessarily I don't want them to grow, but because I want them to grow at a rate that I'm comfortable and happy with. Because if I have all this freedom in terms of money, but I can't use it, if I'm too stressed out, if I'm barking orders or yelling at my family members, well, that's not useful at all. Like, why would I do that? I'm just as much trapped by this thing I built myself as I was before when I was working a corporate job.
Hmm. That's once again, it reflects strong mental clarity and again, understanding the variables, the controllables, and then assessing the situation, and then consciously taking a decision, for, of course, for the betterment of your health, your mental health, and physical health as well. I think
Absolutely.
although it can be sometimes very difficult and painful situation uh, to handle. However, uh, that's where that warrior mindset comes into the play. Mm, Also, uh, now psychedelics. Talking about psychedelics, since you had you had addressed with it, so psychedelic therapy is although gaining mainstream recognition, particularly for treating PTSD in veterans. So, with respect to your military background, Scotty, how do you see this fitting into the broader mental health landscape?
Yeah. Well, I think they're a tool and they're a very helpful tool, but I think in the Western world we sort of approach all medicine. My wife is a doctor in the Western tradition, so she's a general practice medical doctor, and she'll be the first
Mhm.
to tell you that the way that they treat any sort of illness is to address the symptoms. And so, well, I had a headache, I take an Advil, headache goes away. And so, psychedelics I think are much more safely and healthily approached if you look at them more like the indigenous look at them, which is let's treat the root cause. And so let's use psychedelics as an additional filter and look at this from a different way. And instead of treating the symptom, a headache, we look at the root cause, which is maybe I'm dehydrated or maybe I'm staring at a
Mhm.
screen too long. And then we fix the root cause of the problem. Because otherwise, we tend to look at psychedelics as this one stop shop, this magic bullet. And then that's another way, I think, of putting the responsibility for our own healing off to something or someone else. And I don't think that's healthy. I think we need to take ownership of the problem and use psychedelics for the amazing tools that they are without relying on them for the entirety of the solution.
Hmm. Of course. I think that is the effective part, understanding the root cause of the problem and then uh, backwards, understanding the root cause of the problem. Um, and when we mention or we talk about psychedelics, I think there are a lot of misconceptions, or some critics would say that it's just a quick fix rather than true healing. So what would you say to someone who sees it that way?
Yeah, well, I'm not in the business of trying to convince anyone into a healing methodology that they don't align with. Some people have healed their
Mhm.
problems with Christianity. They go to a church. Others have gone to AA. Others have used exercise and meditation. And I think as humans, we very often fall into the trap of saying, well, this worked for me, so this is going to work for everyone else. Or this didn't work for me, so this is a useless way of approaching it. So I'd say that to the critic that says most people are using psychedelics, or a lot of people are using psychedelics as a quick fix, I tend to agree with them. And what I try to encourage people to do is, well, let's look at all the options available because my job here is not to put you into one path or the other. I'll give you my experiences and what worked for me, but with the acknowledgement
Mm.
that you have to find your own way to healing and what works for you. So try psychedelics and try a couple of different ones because there are a lot out there. Try exercise and meditation, try church. And at the end of the day, you'll find a strong calling in your heart to whatever methodology really calls to you. And so that's my real purpose here is to help people find the methodology that works for them as opposed to any one particular way of doing it.
Mm. Yeah, and definitely, I think it's not a one size fits all solution. Definitely, I completely agree with you. It can be, many modalities or many channels can be explored along the journey. Um, so that's
Absolutely.
quite a good way to tackle the misconceptions. Also, uh, now as you mentioned about Indigenous, so you work closely with them, with Indigenous tribes, and you honor their traditions in your healing work. And I think in a world where wellness trends, they can sometimes be really commercialized, and somewhere down the line, that true essence, that authenticity of uh, you know that wellness trend or that particular concept, it can be lost. So how do you ensure that authenticity in psychedelics, and addressing those modern healing um, channels, and respect in what you do?
That's a really great question. Over the course of the last few hundred years, the Western world has been very cruel to indigenous populations everywhere, and honestly, stretching back
Mhm.
far into history. And so
Mhm.
I think it's important that now we're like, oh, this wonderful, amazing drug called ayahuasca, for example, has popped up
Mhm.
in the Amazon. Let's go take it. So people are coming down here in droves to take it. I think it's important that we honor the traditions and honor the people who have been safeguarding that tradition. And so within ayahuasca, for example, it has several main components, one of which is DMT. And you can synthesize DMT and you can take that on your own. But the problem is that the reason why it has been safeguarded and kept safe and secure is because the using it in the proper methodology in the proper way really makes sure that it's used safely. And so, for example, there's ayahuasca gummies on the market now. And so instead of taking it in an indigenous way with proper leaders that have been trained and can facilitate the experience, you just pop a gummy and off you go. And I think that's a really, really bad way of doing it. So that's number one.
Mhm.
We need to honor the traditions because that's how we make sure that for us, it's a safe experience. And number two, I believe there needs to be reciprocity. We need to understand where the medicine is coming from,
Exactly.
and we need to understand the people from where it comes from. So one thing that I do is when I go down to train with my elders in the Putumayo jungle, I ask them, hey, what do you guys need? And so we've been able to help their community with solar panels. We're helping them with all sorts of manners of things that they really need to survive. And so we're showing our gratitude and we're exchanging value, reciprocity. And I think that's a very useful and important thing to do. And I think that's what
Mhm.
most people that take psychedelics will agree with you. One of the things that psychedelics tends to do is radically increase our empathy. And so I just think that's the right thing to do. And above all, making sure that we're taking care of the people who have taken care of these traditions for us.
No, yeah, that's really, really beautiful. That's really commendable, Scotty. Um, um, okay, and I think this will be my most favorite part. So let's try to understand the power of music in healing. Uh, I
Yeah.
think I have had conversations around music uh, as a part of breath work, and how it can be used as a meditation tool as well. And
Mhm.
talking about your free medicine music course, I think I haven't had encountered with such kind of conversation or topic on this. So I think it's truly, truly unique. So, um, would you like to tell us more about this, and also what inspired you to create it?
Yeah, I love that. So I played a little bit of guitar and classical piano as a kid, but as an
Mhm.
adult, I lost my connection to the music. And if you go into any ayahuasca ceremony, virtually anywhere in the world, music is usually a huge part of that. As you mentioned, it's a huge part of breath work. It's a huge part of yoga, even. So
Yeah.
on a physical, on a physiological level, music calms us down. There are a lot of proven health benefits to that. On a physical level, it's really useful for us to be able to spend our time as humans in leisure activities that really build us up and that allow us to progress. And so, music for that reason is very critical, I think, as one way of doing that. And then on a spiritual level, at least in ayahuasca and various other indigenous plant medicines, the music acts as a protection spiritually and physically for us. So when I got to my first ayahuasca ceremony, I heard the guitarist and he was playing and singing, and it struck my heart in a way that I find it very difficult to describe. I was just absolutely in love with this music from the first start. And I
Mhm.
went up to the instructor and said, hey, how can I start? How can I learn? He's like, well, you can find some tutorials on YouTube. And I looked around and actually bought quite a few courses and took a lot of courses with various medicine musicians. And that took me about 2 years and probably several $1,000s. And I wanted to expose that to more people because I knew that I had a lot of friends that were like, well, I'd love to learn, but I just don't have the money for the course or I don't have money for lessons. And
Mhm.
one thing that as a musician I understand is that it's very difficult before you have a true passion about something to spend and
Mm.
or find the resources in order to do it. And what we really are doing here with this course is we're allowing people to light the fire within their own hearts of the love of the music and the joy of creating our music and I want to spread in the world. And it's also reciprocity. It comes from a community of tribe, it comes from a tradition. And so as we're sharing these musical traditions, we're honoring the places and people from which they came. And so I said, look, I'm going to make the whole thing free. You can't you can't buy anything. There's nothing to buy here. So we have at this point more than 10 instructors, each one of whom have separate individual courses. We are recording new songs all the time. And eventually, if people want to donate, that's amazing. We happily accept, we'll happily accept donations, but it's not required. Nothing's required. The only thing that's required is that you try. And that's what I really want to do in the world. And I'm convinced that there's all sorts of opportunities that are going to open up to that in the future. For example, we'll run musical retreats.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
very difficult to become a medicine musician. You have to learn how to play, and you also have to learn how to sing, and you have to learn how to play and sing when you're
Mhm.
in the medicine experience, which anyone that's taken ayahuasca before can tell you is a very difficult thing to do. And so we're going to be running retreats, and that's eventually how we will make we'll make money. But at the end of the day, I'm doing this because I love it and because I want people to play more music, and I believe that's a good goal. And so if I never make any money from this at all, I'm very happy with that. I'll go to bed and sleep peacefully. That because that's not the goal. And I think that's what
Right.
the entire basis of merging mental health and spirituality and entrepreneurship is. It's if there's a problem in the world, go fix it and build a company around it or build a nonprofit or build a foundation. And there will always be people, if the goal is worthy enough and if it's affecting people's lives, that will give you money or support it in either financial terms or prayers, or there's all sorts of monetization opportunities that open up once you've done something valuable. And I think that as entrepreneurs, we too often focus on, well, how am I going to make money right off the bat? And that becomes our focus. And I think a better way to put the focus is on solving the problem first and then figuring out how to make money out of it.
Hmm. that- That's really intentional, and really I can see definitely a big purpose behind this. So for someone who has never picked up an instrument before, how do you think learning medicine music can or it could shift their mental and emotional state?
Yeah, well, one thing is that everyone has musicality and music in them. We are creative creatures. And so it doesn't matter if you want to play guitar or if you want to sing or if you want to bang a drum or shake a rattle. All of those things, it can be a very difficult thing to overcome that fear. If you've never sung
Mhm.
before, it's about as hard as if you've never picked up a guitar before. So I encourage people, look, it's a free course. So come in, pick up a guitar, borrow a guitar from someone, try it. If you like it, keep doing it. If not, we'll try singing or try a drum or try a rattle, whatever it is. There's all sorts of things. And I think that there are many ways to learn and it's difficult to do, right? So you really have to connect yourself with the purpose and reason behind it. Why do you want to play music? Is it because you want to calm yourself or do you have a goal in mind? Because no matter what you start, it'll be very difficult for the first couple of months for most people, unless you're a musical genius, which point you probably have already been playing. It's difficult
Mhm.
for everybody. And so the only thing that required is a little bit of discipline and a little bit of consistency. And you'll be playing in no time. And so don't let the negative thoughts get to you, because the moment day one, you pick up the guitar and you realize that you don't sound like the instructor right away, or you don't sound like a friend that you know he was playing, and you can get depressed and down, but everyone goes through that. And so just keep pushing through and you'll be successful.
Hmm. Encouraging, encouraging. Now coming back to you know, when we discussed about how you knew that okay, you know, uh, entrepreneurship is maybe this is not right now for me, and I need to let it go. Uh, so some people would say that on one hand, entrepreneurship it requires drive, strategy, and control. Tenacity, resilience, but um, plant medicine and healing it often emphasize surrendering and letting it go. So, do you see these two mindsets as contradictory, or is there a way to integrate them?
I think there's definitely a way to integrate them, and that's a really wonderful question. I think
Mhm.
sometimes we, especially in entrepreneurship, like if you think of Gary Vaynerchuk, you like sell, 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 or Grant Cardone, sell, 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 always be working. You become a slave to whatever you're building. And this is not saying that everyone that does that is a slave, but for me, I became a slave. And so I think as entrepreneurs, one of the fundamental things that drives us is we're independent thinkers. We're building a company because we see something in the world or we want to live a different way. We don't want to be reporting to a boss. We want to live life on our own terms. So for any entrepreneur that thinks that quitting a business is a lack of tenacity, I would ask them, like, well, that's a decision that everyone has to make. So if you like, why are you in a business if you're not happy? Why are you continuing to
Mhm.
do a thing over and over again if it's not producing you the results that you want? And I think at the end of the day, that's a balance that we have to strike. So for me,
Mhm.
I believe that I'm guided by a higher power. I believe the universe and God and the spirits have a plan for me and that they told me to build a music course. And so in that effort, until I get a guidance to the contrary, I will continue to build it. And I have tenacity, meaning it doesn't matter if I have $0 in my bank account, I will still record videos. I will still build it. I don't care what happens. or what challenges I pass through, it's something that needs to be built and it's my passion and my mission. So in that case, like I have ultimate tenacity, ultimate faith in a sense, and I'll continue going regardless.
Hmm. And I think uh, our higher selves, uh, when they communicate with us, I think to listen to them, we definitely need that body, mind, and spirit alignment, that connection. And I think healing definitely provides that connection because if our mind has anxiety, all the blockages if are there, like then I think it's very difficult to establish that connection. So I loved that fact that you mentioned about trusting your higher self, understanding the signs from the universe.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think that once you integrate your higher self, the spirituality side, and also the business side, then you realize one, the things that are worth doing, you'll continue doing, and two, that no one else's opinion matters at all. So I don't care about judgment. I don't care about people that tell me I'm doing the wrong thing. I don't judge anyone either. Look, everyone is welcome to do whatever they want. So am I. I'm doing it. So please leave me alone. And thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really great, really great. Great, great, Scotty. So I think this was such a great conversation. So if our listeners would wish to explore more about all the resources you're providing, and of course the free medicine, music, healing, and everything, how they can do for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's probably best if you put in the show notes or include a link, but it's escuela.coyotipi.com. So that'll be impossible for most people to spell. So I hope you put that in the show notes or a link somewhere. But it is,
Yeah.
you can also go to coyotipi.com and we have a link there. It's free for everyone. So we would love to see everyone possible. And we're translating it into English. It's currently mostly in Spanish, so we'll have it in Spanish and English very shortly. And any questions? As soon as you enter the course, you have my contact information. Just shoot me a hello, and whatever I can help you out with, I'm happy to do so.
Great. We'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes, listeners. And thank you so much, Scotty, for taking us on the journey of, from the high pressure world of business and military life to deep healing, which you found in music and plant medicine. I think your journey is definitely of transformation and service. So thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and I'm very honored to have appeared on your show.
Lovely, lovely, Scotty. And to all of our listeners, if you connected with today's conversation, be sure to follow Scotty's work and check out his free medicine music course. Try it out. And as always, stay curious, stay open, and keep expanding your cosmic conscience. This is Cosmic Conscience Podcast. And until next time, take care. And thank you.